Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I'm Shreya Dhoundial. As always, it is very good to see you. Ladies and gentlemen, here's the thing. The uniform is called a uniform for a reason. When you don it, whether in school or in college or in the armed forces, it dissolves all social, economic and religious differences and puts everyone donning that uniform on an equal footing. Therefore, when a class 11 student in Allahabad took her school to court over not allowing her to wear the hijab, it opened up yet another chapter on individual rights over institutional rights. Here's the story. The young lady, 16 years old, wanted the school to allow her to wear the hijab. Her argument? The same school had allowed her to wear one since she was in class 6, which means for the past 5 years. Now, 5 years later, she says, the school decided to strictly abide by the prescribed dress code and the hijab was not part of it. The minor then, through her mother, told the court that she belonged to the Muslim Shia community and wearing the headscarf was part of her religious practice and that she had been wearing one since she was a child. This young girl, a schoolgirl, claimed that preventing her from wearing a hijab violated her fundamental rights under Article 14 and 19A of the Constitution. And therefore, she sought a direction from the court to permit her to attend classes while wearing a headscarf. Now, ladies and gentlemen, does the Constitution of India give us the right to religious freedom? Does it allow us to wear what we want and eat what we want? Of course it does. Yes, it does. But do these rights stop at the gates of a school? No, they don't. But can they be subject to reasonable restrictions? The answer to that is absolutely, but there are varied opinions. Any case, the Allahabad High Court then responded to this hijab plea, like at least 3 other high courts in this country, including the Kerala High Court, the Karnataka High Court and Mumbai have done. It junked the schoolgirl's plea and said that hijab is not essential to Islam. The High Court also upheld the importance of a uniform dress code in educational institutions. It observed that where a school's dress policy is uniform, non-discriminatory and intended to maintain discipline and institutional identity, then students, individual students, cannot seek changes based on personal preferences. Now, ladies and gentlemen, high courts in this country have been very clear about this. But so have the clerics. They say hijab is an essential part of Islam and therefore the Allahabad High Court verdict will now be challenged in the Supreme Court.
The Quran and the Hadith has very clearly mentioned that hijab is very much an integral and essential part of Islam. In Quran, Allah has very clearly mentioned in Surah Nur and Surah Hijab that all the Muslim girls and women must dress modestly, and the same have been mentioned in these ayat regarding the hijab or regarding the parda. So I think that there is some what confusion as far as this particular thing is concerned.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, the point is that the matter did go to the Supreme Court after the Karnataka ruling. The verdict, there was split. One judge said secularism means uniformity. The other said secularism means diversity. While the matter now remains pending before a larger bench, the politics around it continues as well.
जो लोग इसका विरोध कर रहे हैं, उनको पहले तो ये अपनी मानसिकता से उबरना चाहिए कि देश संविधान से चल रहा है और संविधान में कहीं ऐसी व्यवस्था नहीं कि एक ही विद्यालय में एक ही कमरे में 2 तरह का ड्रेस अलाउ हो।
कुछ चीजें लोगों को उनकी इच्छा पर भी छोड़ दी जाए। मैं व्यक्तिगत तौर पे ये मानता हूं कि किसी को अगर दबाव में ये करना पड़ता है तो वो उचित नहीं है, लेकिन कोई अपनी एजेंसी का इस्तेमाल करके अगर कोई इस तरह की चीज वस्त्र हो, कोई और आभूषण हो, तो फिर मैं समझता हूं कि एक डोमेन वो छोड़ के रखना चाहिए।
In a secular school which is not run by religion, then obviously there would be a secular dress. The focus is academics. So if this girl feels that wearing a hijab is important, then she can certainly study in a minority institution.
The Honorable Prime Minister says that we can identify people with their paridhan, and then court doesn't allow to wear paridhan whatever you want to wear. Then I have nothing to say. It's a court order, so no comment on the court. I just reminded what Prime Minister says.
धार्मिक परंपराएं होती हैं वो अपने मंदिर में, अपने घर में पालन किया जाना चाहिए, सार्वजनिक स्थलों पे नहीं। तो इलाहाबाद हाई कोर्ट का ये फैसला स्वागत योग्य है और मुझे लगता है मुस्लिम समाज के लोगों को इस फैसले का मर्म समझना चाहिए और देश की मुख्य धारा में आना चाहिए।
It's better that the Supreme Court gives a quietus to this, and basically this entire effort to communalize education, Supreme Court must use this as an opportunity to clamp down on that.
एक बात बहुत ही गौर करने की है कि इलाहाबाद हाई कोर्ट ने जो ये सेंटेंस कहा है कि हिजाब इस्लाम का हिस्सा नहीं है, मैं ये समझता हूं कि हिजाब के लिए कुरान करीम में वाज़े तौर के ऊपर लिखा है कि हिजाब औरत को करना चाहिए और इस्लाम का ये अहम हिस्सा है। हिजाब औरत के ऊपर वाजिब है, कंपलसरी है, जरूरी है। 10% के ऊपर हम नहीं लगा सकते हैं और ये वाज़े तौर के ऊपर है। जो वकील साहब हमारे थे हाई कोर्ट में, मैं ये समझता हूँ वो इस बात को क्लियर नहीं कर पाए हैं कि या रेफरेंस नहीं दे पाए हैं कि इस्लाम में हिजाब बहुत जरूरी है। मैं समझता हूँ कि अगर ये बात यहाँ पे आके रुकी है तो इस मैटर को सुप्रीम कोर्ट जाना चाहिए।
And so, ladies and gentlemen, hijab or uniform, what is essential practice in a secular democratic nation? My guest this evening, Tushar Gupta, good evening, joining us on the broadcast. Ambar Zaidi, activist, joining us on the broadcast. Both of them batting for the same team. Lubna is joining us on the broadcast. She's a social activist. Nikhat Abbas, spokesperson of the Congress Party. The Congress Party has taken a very strident stand on the issue. Tehseen Pulawala is a political analyst. He's joining us on the broadcast. Tehseen,
Team Shreya.
Hi, good evening.
I'm batting Team Shreya.
Kya bolo?
I'm batting Team Shreya.
And I'm batting Team India. And all of us are batting Team India. Chalega?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, we will, that's what we are doing. This is a debate.
You can say Team Bharat and promote ethanol.
No, I like
ethanol
India.
campaign.
No, I like India. I like to call my country India. Some people may want to call it Bharat. I still like to call it India. Okay, I'm old-fashioned that way. Tehseen Pulawala, let me then start with you. Do you agree with what the court has said?
No, I don't. Because it's not about whether it's essential in Islam or no. That's not the point. Women have a right to wear what they want. And I honestly think Maulanas should stop preaching to women what they should wear. Maulanas should mind their own business. I'm very, very clear about this. They have no right in women's life. Please stay out of women's lives. Women will do what they want. But look, culturally in India, across religions, women like to wear a dupatta, you call it a hijab, a scarf or whatever. As long as the face is not covered, it's the same color as the uniform. They just want to cover their hair. I think education is more important than that part of uniformity. Again, I'm not saying it's an essential part of Islam. My mom's a Muslim. She's never worn it. In fact, she wears, when my dad was alive, she wore the Mangal Sutra to the mosque. That's different. What I'm saying is if a woman, a girl, any religion wants to cover her hair and she feels that that is a part of her modesty without covering her identity, her face, not the burqa, just covering her hair, which Sikh women do, Christian women do, Hindu women do, I think it's fine. Education is more important and the courts should not step into that domain. That's my limited point, and I think we should be liberal enough to allow that.
Now, the courts didn't step into that domain. The young girl went knocking to the doors of the court, right? The point is, this is an unaided private school. I, Tehseen, run an unaided private school. And I say that there is a strict dress code. Every student will wear a uniform. And the uniform, as I said, is called a uniform for a reason, right? Because it dissolves all differences as soon as you step into the gates of the school. I say the dress code will be followed strictly. Why should I make an exception for one child?
You don't make an exception for one child. If she would go to the court saying she's not going to wear a uniform and wear a burqa, that would not be allowed. But if she believes, like for example, that her hair should not be shown and she's wearing a scarf, a hijab, whatever you call it, a dupatta, to cover her hair, which is part of her modesty, I think that is fine as long as that is not a burqa. I am very clear on it. That is how it should be. Uniformity does not overtake diversity. Uniformity is a must. But then what is uniform? Are we going into that? Then what part is essential, what part is not essential? So if I'm wearing a kalawa and I think this is mine, and then you say, no, it's uniform, you can't wear a kalawa. Then does that end? Or somebody's wearing a tikka, or somebody's wearing a raki, or somebody's wearing something else. So I just think there is uniformity in the uniform. Whatever people want to do to express themselves as human beings, therefore the education doesn't get impacted.
No, but
it's a thin
school,
line, but it should must
But the school is not, Tushar can come in here, but the school is not a place to express yourself, no?
It is.
I say, I suddenly want to put a big bindi or a tilak, or one day I want to wear a ghungat and go to school. Then you will say, Arey Shreya, uniform to pen rakhi hai. But, you can do what you want to express yourself. Arey bhai, this is a school. Look, what a kid does or what anyone does outside the premises of an educational institution, absolute. Individuals have the right to do it. But when you are coming to school, you have to follow the rules of that school.
Exactly. Shreya, you know why schools set rules for their uniform? Because if left to the students or their parents, they'll confuse a dupatta for an hijab and an hijab for a burqa. They'll say if a kalawa is allowed, why can't the hijab be allowed? Because such disproportional comparisons can be made, therefore schools prescribe uniforms. And since it's a private unaided school, the school has the final right how conservative or how liberal it wants to be with its uniform. I'm sure there will be private schools where hijab won't be a problem. In this case, the private school doesn't have hijab as a part of its uniform. I'll give you the example of Sikh boys and girls. A lot of Sikh boys wear patkas when they are young and turbans when they are a little older, in the senior grades. The school prescribes the color of the turban or the patka. Now, a Sikh boy can say, I want to wear this color or that color. I want to express myself. The school has a uniform rule for that also, that please wear a patka, but this is the color you have to follow. If there is a young girl or someone studying in class 9th or 10th, at least the school I went to, they will have to be in salwar kameez with a dupatta on it. So the school has to prescribe the uniform. You or I or me cannot sit and decide which school follows which uniform, because then that will be a chaotic affair altogether. And we also discussed this, Shreya, once upon a time. And I said the same thing that I'll say today. If the girl really wants to have her hijab, she's so, placing her religion above education, there are minority-run institutions. The Constitution, that is why, has that provision where minorities can run their own institutions, be free from any sort of control, and exercise their, freedom and expression over there. It's that simple. Don't impose your faith on a private school. It's that simple.
Lubna, this young girl is trying to impose her faith and her belief on a private school. I mean, and I also want to ask you, Lubna, where will this end? Tomorrow, if a Muslim girl gets enrolled into the armed forces, will she say, hijab is essential to my religion, and therefore I may be a fighter pilot, but I want to wear a headscarf or a hijab along with my uniform? Where will it end, Lubna?
Salams to everybody. And Shreya, I think very important, the most important thing that at least I am able to see, let me speak out my heart, I am able to see only this much, that a student is not being allowed to continue her studies in the same school and in the same dress that she was wearing for 4-5 years continuously. This is all that I am seeing. And I am vocal here for that student, that she must be allowed to continue her education, and there is a middle path through, because the uniform, she cannot come in any other colored things like apparels, but only in the same uniform, and the colored uniform, the scarf that goes with it. And I am very, very extremely concerned only about her education. And if the school has suddenly decided no, then I think the decision is very regressive. And I am very happy that it's going for appeal to the Supreme Court. And another thing about this religious angle, and what I read from the media, because I haven't read the order, I see that the media is quoting that this court has, the order carries this two things that you were also telling, Shreya, about the essential practices. But I want to tell you one thing, and also you raised another point, what is the limit of the fundamental rights? Okay. So I want to place it here on record that I do not agree with this court's judgment, because the court is not here to determine the essential practice of Islam. The court is the custodian of the constitution, and the fundamental rights allow her to go with her dressing, but with the middle path. And also, the court is not the right authority to determine the essential practices of a religion. The court should have gone only into the fundamental rights. If a fundamental rights are being violated, then they cannot be violated. And this, I think, the court is. I don't mind telling that the court has been a little bit overstepped. And regarding the fundamental right, restrictions of fundamental rights are not one thing. Let me conclude. Fundamental rights are not absolute. They are, of course, restricted. The restrictions are when they disturb the public decency or the public morality. So how does a student who was already being allowed for 5 years, and if she continues with the same colored scarf with the uniform, then how does it disrupt the moral decency or the public order or the public morality? It doesn't.
Lubna. Okay,
so
Lubna.
Here we are crushing the fundamental right.
The court has given its argument on that as well,
and
Lubna.
she must be allowed to continue with a middle path.
Lubna, I don't think anyone wants the young girl not to continue in school. Which right-thinking citizen would want a young 16-year-old to drop out of school because of a hijab or a scarf?
But the regressive decision of this school has done that.
No,
the
but
school has expressed its regressiveness.
No, you are calling it the regressive decision of the school. My point of view is that this was the regressive decision of the parent.
For 5 years she was allowed to continue.
Lubna, my view is that this was the regressive.
Why suddenly this decision after 5 years?
Okay, Lubna. The court has given its reasoning for that as well. The court is saying just because in the past this young lady was allowed to wear the hijab doesn't mean that she will be allowed to wear it when the school decides on enforcing its dress code strictly. You are calling the school regressive, but I'm saying the parents are regressive.
Agreed, Shreya.
Agreed, Shreya. You are saying the school is forcing the girl to drop out. I am saying the parents are forcing the girl to drop out.
The girl wants to continue her study. The student wants to continue her study in the same school. They want to throw her out. Let them substantiate it. Suddenly, all of a sudden, after 5 years, why is the student facing this regression? Tell me.
Ambar Zaidi will come in. But again, Lubna, there is, Lubna, again, there are individual rights and there are institutional rights. Since when did individual rights become greater than institutional rights? The school, the management that runs the school doesn't have a right to decide what will be the uniform in their school. An individual student will get to decide.
I want the school to substantiate it. I want the school to substantiate, which it hasn't done. When taking this decision, what is the substantiation of changing the
Ambar Zaidi, you can come in here, but the High Court is very clearly, the High Court has given its argument very clearly.
Absolutely.
Yeah, go ahead, Ambar.
Yes. So, Shreya, I am surprised to hear Lubna today. She should have been more concerned about the education of Muslim girls. She should have said that irrespective of hijab with or without hijab, Muslim girls should be allowed to continue their education. And let me be very, very blunt today.
Lubna, give me a moment. 1 minute. Ambar, 1 minute. Just a minute, Lubna. Just a minute, Ambar. Lubna, you've had your say. Let's hear from Ambar. I'll come back to you.
From practicing their faith or stop the Muslim girls to continue their education. What has court said is very simple. If a school has uniform, bona fide or a non-discriminatory dress code, one student cannot automatically demand that the uniform be modified simply because she personally claims a religious entitlement. No, we have to respect an institutional rules, regulation, and right as well. And institutional right is bigger than individual's right. We have enough freedom to practice our freedom of expression in our personal space. Why we impose our this belief system on educational institutions? We haven't seen in the past such girls coming out and going to the courts and Supreme Court, and so far in different Supreme Courts until like High Courts until Supreme Court. After several arguments, you could not prove that it is an essential practice to Islam. You compare with other religions that a Sikh boy or girls are allowed to practice this and that, but that is essential practice of being a Sikh. So far, you could not.
And the point is, Lubna. The point also is, Lubna. Amber referred to it. 1 minute, Amber. 1 minute. The point also is, Lubna. The point also is that it is not the court that unilaterally one day decided it wants to rule on whether the hijab is an essential practice for Islam. This young lady went to the court with this appeal that by restricting my right to wear the hijab, they are restricting my right to practice my religion as it should be practiced. So it is not the court that is, unilaterally saying, "Aaj hum is cheez pe judgment denge." This is a young girl who approached them. They have given their response. It is as simple as that. Nikhat Abbas, can I ask you then, how you, for a moment, let's leave the politics aside. We understand that Uttar Pradesh will be going to the polls next year. But how does one explain what Mr. Pawan Khera has tweeted on the issue? He says, whether the hijab is essential to Islam or not is for religious scholars to decide. ठीक है? Okay. From a socio-political standpoint, we stand firmly with women's bodily autonomy and agency. Great, very good. Every woman, irrespective of caste, class or religion, is entitled to wear what she chooses. Hijab, ghungat or anything else. Great, I agree. Break the cage, smash the patriarchy. But does this last sentence, that every woman, irrespective of her religion, can choose to wear what she wants, hijab, ghungat, etc., apply to the armed forces? Does it apply to schools?
It's good that you quoted Mr. Pawan Kheraji's tweet. I'd like to start with what you said initially, that school is not a place to express. Shreya, I beg to differ, because school is the first place where we teach our kids, our children, how to express themselves, what to practice, what to learn. That is the foundation. Come on, you and I send our kids to school, and obviously we ensure that they should be modestly dressed, they should be properly dressed. You remember those times, Shreya, when we used to go to schools and we used to match our ribbons, hair clips and rubber bands and hair bands with our dresses? That's the uniformity. That's the proper way we go to school, because if we want to tie our hair, we have to tie it a certain way. We have to use the similar kind of, matching rubber bands, because there's the uniformity which we have to follow. Now, similarly, if somebody wants to cover her head with the similar kind of color which her dress matches, the school uniform matches, I do not understand what is the hurdle which is coming in front of the schools. Because let's just imagine, first of all, that somebody telling a woman that you cannot wear a hijab because I have decided. Now, imagine somebody telling the same woman that you can.
This is a minor. This is a minor in a school.
Allow me to finish. That there are same minor kids, alpha generation, who are protesting because the rotis which they are getting in Uttar Pradesh are burnt. They're getting pani wali dal. They're getting snakes in their food. They're getting detergent instead of salt in their food. So they're the same minor people who are also struggling for that. BJP keeps mum on that. So let's not even go there. A minor, a 16-year-old, is obviously telling that a 16-year-old, when a girl starts with her menstruation, that's when the BJP says कि आगे बड़े बच्चे हो जाते हैं, उसके बाद वो decide नहीं कर सकती है what dress she wants to wear, and if she wants to wear a headscarf or if she wants to wear a hijab or not. I mean, now let me just finish. Imagine somebody telling a woman that you are supposed to wear a hijab because I have decided. Now imagine the same person telling the other woman that you cannot wear because I have decided that you cannot, and it's not an essential part of wherever you want. Herself, she has decided she wants to wear a hijab.
Will you use the same? No. Will you use the same logic for the armed forces?
There are schools.
Will you use the same logic for the armed forces? Will you use the same logic for the armed forces? Nikhat, answer that question, please.
I will. The specific question, specific answer. That is the duty for our nation. School is where we learn to practice, we learn to express, we learn our confidence. Now, top-notch schools in Delhi NCR, even I send my daughter to a school, there they are allowed to decide if they want to wear a skirt or if they want to wear a pant. The girls are allowed to decide if they want to wear a skirt or if they want to wear a pant. Now, that is because they have considered that if a girl might feel insecure of wearing a skirt, or she probably would want to, dress herself.
Amber Zaidi, that is the right of the school. In this case, there are many Muslim girls in that school. She is the only one who wants to wear a headscarf.
Of course, that is why I said it. What court has stated in that order very clearly. And I wanted to come to Quran because Nikat has been, she's been arguing that nobody can decide, and what Quran has said, we should also, discuss that. Quran very clearly addressed fast believing men in verse 30, telling them lower their gaze and guard their chastity. The verse also addresses believing women guard their modesty. Quran only talks about modesty, not to cover their head or just different. That is an outer garment. What is essential to cover our bodies? The garment we normally wear, or the uniform. If we are going to school, we have to wear the uniform because we respect the institutional right. Equally, as Shreya said, that
Lubna,
if somebody
Lubna, I'm asking a simple question. Are institutional rights below individual rights? Today there is a 16-year-old girl who's making this argument in school. Tomorrow there'll be a lady pilot of the Indian Air Force who will make this argument in court. What will you do then?
Let it play out, Shreya. Let it play out. Women were not in the military commission at all. It is through the Supreme Court that they got these long-term commissions. Let things evolve. Let arguments play out. What are we afraid of? Now here a student who wants to educate herself in the same school. She loves her school. She loves her friends. She loves her teachers and everybody. She wants to continue in the same school, and regressively her education is being curtailed and disturbed. This is something very, very undermining the constitution itself.
By her parents.
Her right to education. And
by,
she has not
by her
broken any
parents or by the school?
or public immorality. She's not anything of that. She's within the realm of the constitution to wear a hijab and have a middle path with the school.
But the institution and the school is also within its rights to say we are going to be strict about our dress code.
Religion part
एक second. Can I?
Lubna, what is the point you're making?
Yes,
एक minute, Tushar. Lubna, you make your point.
The school substantiate itself.
Lubna, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. Will you please make your point again?
I'm telling, did we hear this? Yeah, Shreya, I want to tell this again, that did the court bother to find out from the school on what substantiation did it allow and now suddenly disallow?
Yes.
What is the reason? When the little girl, little student who's been there for 5 years wants to continue in the same, out of the affection for the school, her belongingness and all that, her dreams are
since
being
you asked
thwarted
me,
like
now
this.
hear me out. The school,
How amazing this is.
the school, CBSE that it is affiliated to, and the government were all on the same page. They said if the institution has decided that every student, Hindu, Muslim, Sikh, Isai, has to stick to a dress code, then everyone has to stick to a dress code. We can't make an exception for one girl. Simple. That is the logic. Tushar, you wanted to come in. Go ahead.
Shreya, there's one question you've been asking about uniforms in the armed forces, and you've not got an answer. And what you got was let things evolve. Now, this is where a dangerous precedent is set. Today, it's the uniform. Tomorrow, it will be the syllabus. Day after tomorrow, it will be the curriculum. A month later, it will be how the school calendar should be, when should be the holidays. There should be a prayer time allocated. Then one day, someone will say, I do not want a male teacher. I do not want a female teacher. Where will this stop? You know, this idea of let things evolve and then we'll discuss, it's not about letting things evolve. It's about setting one precedent, then using it to get something else, then using that precedent to get something else. And by the time we are having this conversation, the CBSE school is running like a minority-led institution. Again, if the girl wants to prioritize her religion over her education, go to a minority-run school. There is no harming. There is no stopping that. And Nikhat here says they are there to express. I'm sorry. Ribbons and band-aids and whatever she's saying, this cannot be compared to what the little girl is asking for. So let's be very clear on the comparison. आप बैठ के यहाँ टीवी पे कह रहे हो कलावा या ribbon, burqa या hijab जैसे, ये तो गलत comparison है ना? It's insulting to both hijab and burqa that you compare it with a kalawa or a rubber band or a ribbon. That's incorrect.
Tehseen, come in here. Again, where will you stop? Where will you draw the line? My point is as simple as that. And you know, when Lubna says very regressive of the school, I want to know whether it is regressive of the school or regressive of the parents. There are other Muslim girls in that school. No one is insisting that I will wear headscarf ke aungi. But here is a parent and his 16-year-old insisting that I will headscarf hi pehen ke aungi. Part, you know, essential part of my practice. I mean, essential practice is wearing the uniform. For the school, that is essential practice. And if you come to that school, you have to follow their essential practice. Simple, na?
So the question is, where do you draw the line at common sense? You draw the line at common sense. Now, the question that what happens in the armed forces versus schools is irrelevant. And I'll explain to you why, Shreya. Because you can only be an adult to join the armed forces. So you, as an adult, take a decision. In school, it is your parents who put you in school. You don't really have much of a choice at that point of time. And therefore, I completely agree with you that it is maybe the culture, the parents, maybe friends who shaped this girl's belief. Maybe it is herself. At 16, she must have thought she wanted to wear it, but she said she's been wearing since the 6th grade. Personally, I think it's women do not need to wear all of this. However, as long as it's only a hair, nothing else is covered, I don't see how that disturbs anybody else. It is common sense. She's not saying I will go out and do my namaz in the middle of classes. She's not saying that, listen, I will go out and I will start reciting the Quran in the middle of classes or start reciting something else in the middle of the classes. That is non-disturbance. My right to express myself ends when I disturb somebody else. As long as I am comfortable in something and I'm wearing. For example, let's say that tomorrow this school also has compulsory swimming. And she's not comfortable wearing a bikini. She wants to wear a burkini. And she wants to cover her legs and swim, or wear the swimming costumes that are full. Are you now going to say that, okay, you cannot swim in that? So I just think what you're comfortable with your body in without either breaking the rules, harming somebody else, or as Lubna said, in the same color. If this girl insisted I want to cover my face, wear a black burqa, not wear the identity, go do my namaz, etc., I think that would be wrong. She's just covering her head. That is it. Period. Doing nothing else that disturbs anybody else. And I think we should have that flexibility.
Last word to Tushar. The fact is that the Supreme Court of India is split on the hijab in schools and educational institutions. So it's only obvious that everyone on the panel will be split as well. And everyone will have that point of view. Our job is to ensure that every point of view is represented on the show. Tushar, 20 seconds, I have to wrap.
Comfort and common sense cannot be described in a news debate. It has to be described by the school. It's that simple. What Tehseen defines as a threshold for common sense might not be the threshold for a girl, for a family, or for the school. That is where let the rules dictate the order of the day. Keep it simple, do not complicate it.
Okay, and therefore the question is secularism diversity or is secularism uniformity? That debate, ladies and gentlemen, will now happen in the Supreme Court. We already have a split verdict. Let's see what the Supreme Court rules and when it rules. Till then, I'm fairly certain we'll keep having cases like these go to various high courts across this country. We'll leave it there for the moment. Thank you very much, Lubna, for joining us. Nikhat Abbas, thank you very much. Tushar, thank you. Tehseen, thank you. And Amber Reddy, thank you very much for joining us. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, a quick break. Lots more news coming up. Do stay with us.